really matters? That might be the most important question you can ask. So let's talk about it. Welcome to What Really Matters podcast, where we talk about everyday spirituality. I'm Karen Wyatt, your host, and in this podcast, I'm sharing with you the spiritual journey of trying to live our best lives from day to day, dealing with all the challenges that occur, and I'm sharing it from my own perspective, talking to you about what I've been learning, what I'm reading, what I'm going through, in hopes that you find it helpful to listen to what is working for me or not working for me in my own life right now. As I get this podcast started, I plan to share with you some various models for looking at spiritual growth and how it happens, things that we can rely on and go back to when we're trying to sort out where we are and what is taking place on our particular journey. So today I'm sharing a model that talks about 3 stages of growth. This could be applied to our spiritual growth, but also to any type of growth in nature, in human development, in societies or civilizations. So it's this very simple 3-part model of order, disorder, and reorder. So those terms I'm borrowing from Father Richard Rohr, who is from the Center for Action and Contemplation, who uses them in some of his talks and teaching. I find it really helpful, though, to break everything down, all these complex stories about how we grow and how we learn spiritually, into just 3 simple stages that we can look at. So we start with order. And order is a stage that we may not actually land upon very often or stay in for very long. But if we look back through life, we will be able to see that there have been times when things actually felt pretty much in place. Things were going well for one reason or another. For some people, they can look back to childhood and see that as a time of order. If they lived in a rather happy and healthy family that was doing okay financially during their childhood, those might have been years that were a relative time of order in life where everything came easily and seemed to fall in place. However, for many of us, that's not the case in childhood. But we may look back at other times in life. There may have been times when we had a job that we loved, that was going well. We had some sort of relationship in our lives, a friend, if not a partner, that we felt comfortable with, and that for a time, everything seemed to be going in the right direction and doing well. And I can pick out those times in my own life. And those are oftentimes precious times, and for some of us, times that we wish we could go back to. We wish we could rewind everything and go back to the days when everything felt ordered, everything had a place, everything was flowing. But in reality, those times of order don't last very long. And that's one of the big challenges that we face as humans here on planet Earth. This model of order, disorder, reorder tells us that growth doesn't really happen unless things become disordered. Growth doesn't really happen during our times of order. Those are more resting places where we land for a while and we have a chance to regroup a little bit and enjoy life around us a little bit, but not usually times when very much growth is happening. And actually, times of order for many people become a little bit boring. And that's why we find people who, it appears almost intentionally, tend to sabotage their own times of order. They'll decide to quit their job or move to a new state or leave their relationship out of the blue. And part of it seems to be because they simply become bored when there's too much order in life, when there's just too much sameness and not enough change from day to day. So in reality, We humans are creatures of change. We long for change and we actually thrive on change. Our creativity is inspired by change. And so that's why times of disorder that come in our life are actually really essential to allow us this opportunity to grow and transform and become creative. That's how we manage to get to our very best selves. So the times of order may be short-lived and infrequent in our lives, and they are always followed by the next stage of disorder when everything seems to fall apart in one way or another. So some sort of loss occurs that we weren't expecting. A loved one might die, we might lose our job, or our workplace might change altogether. There might be drastic weather that destroys our home or our property. Something huge can happen. We can get sick. We can develop an illness that prevents us from going forward with the project that we were working on. Or someone might leave us and abandon us and leave us in pain. And disorder can also happen in small ways. Maybe we lose our favorite purse, or the restaurant down the street closes down, or a tree in our backyard dies. Maybe something smaller that doesn't devastate our lives so much, but also shakes things up, creates this phase of disorder where we are required to learn something new or do something in a different way. For all of us who are listening in present time as I record this, it's 2021, and we've just been through more than 1 year of a pandemic. And this has been one of the biggest times of disorder I've ever experienced in my life. Disorder that has happened all around the planet simultaneously. All humans on the planet have been dealing with the COVID virus in one way or another. It's had a huge impact on how we live from day to day. And so disorder and disruption has actually become somewhat normal for us because we've experienced so much of it all at once. And we have settled in to a type of reorder in a way. We've had to gather up our resources and figure out how are we going to get through these days and this time during this past year. And we have created a new sort of order for ourselves, working from home, isolating from people, going without seeing those that we love. We've been able to do that because we had to. We were forced into it. We didn't really have a choice, but we created a new sort of order for ourselves that has helped us get by during the past year. And now, here we are in the middle of 2021. The pandemic is coming under control thanks to vaccinations. And we're looking at a new sort of disorder as actually things begin to open up. More activities become available to us, and life in some way goes back to a facsimile of what it was prior to the pandemic. So we're in a new state of disorder and searching how we are going to reorder our lives as we move forward and continue to come out of this time of a pandemic. It's all uncertain. We don't know for sure what will happen with the virus, if there will be a new surge of a variant that's resistant to vaccines. We don't really know what's coming, but we know that opportunities are now there to return to some of the activities that were normal for us, some of the order that we might have experienced prior to the pandemic. So this is a really ripe time for us to be talking about order, disorder, and reorder. And I want to mention to you the idea that reordering is aspirational. That term is meant to inspire us to put our pieces back together again in a new way, a way that transforms how we live from day to day, how we view our world, and how we adapt to future disorder in our lives. So our best hope for this scenario as we're trying to find a new order is that we find a better order for ourselves than we had before, that we can take everything that we experienced during the time of disorder, whatever we might have suffered, whatever challenges we faced, we can take all of that and with it construct something new, perhaps a bigger, broader vision of life, of other people, of suffering, of love, of joy in our lives. And so this is a reminder that this order, disorder, reorder model is constantly calling us to move forward and to keep growing no matter what happens, not to go backwards and return back to a previous place of order. We're constantly being pushed and nudged toward growth into a new form of order. So the temptation might be there to think, I just want to forget about this entire year we've been through. I just want to go back to the way things were before. And I'm talking about this right now at this particular time in our history because it's so important that we remember we honestly can't go backwards. Some of the pieces that were present that created the order we had before the pandemic are no longer here for us. Some of those pieces are gone. Some of the ways we thought about the world, some of our beliefs about maybe our own safety or our own separateness, our own independence are gone now. And so we cannot go backwards. We cannot restore the order that was present before the pandemic, before the disorder occurred. All we can do is take stock of where we are right now at this place and do our very best to make something new as we reorder and begin to put all the pieces together again. I have a few poems I'd like to share with you and then talk about a little bit that I think help illustrate this process for us. First is a poem called Shattered by an unknown author that talks about this experience of disorder when it happens in our lives. Shattered. It is lying all around me, shattered into useless pieces of glass that could now rip my unprotected feet. It was the glass castle in which I lived as fairy princess and heroine in shining armor, ready and able to rescue all in need. It was my fragile fantasy, designed to protect me from the searing pain of having never been rescued from my own unspeakable distress. But an invited guest came and rammed my castle doors, besieged my walls, and shattered my glass defense. And so what I once thought of as my castle grand is now nothing more than unrecognizable, jagged pieces. And here I stand, exposed and stunned. It is mine now, not to gather, but to leave these shattered remains. It is mine to find a way to live without this illusion. It is mine to learn to be the peasant child that I am, bereft of shining armor and magic wand. But all I can see at this moment are the broken pieces of my shattered castle walls, and all I can do is weep. I think this poem beautifully expresses what it feels like when our assumptions or beliefs or fantasies about life and how life works are shattered. And it does happen to us repeatedly throughout life, although if we think of it as our childhood fantasies or adolescent fantasies that get broken, but in reality, we continue to create new fantasies. Some might be a little bit more realistic than they were when we were younger, but always the process of disordering is in some way a shattering of whatever fantasy we had about life and what comes next and what might happen for us. In reality, disorder is shattering our attachments to how we want things to be, how we're hoping and clinging and desperately trying to control the situation we're in to make sure that what we want to have happens in the future. So disorder comes to shake all of it up. It comes to just rip apart and shatter those attachments, to reveal to us that we're not really in charge. And honestly, we don't really want to be in charge because we are not the best navigators of our own spiritual growth and our own spiritual path. We ourselves would not choose the situations that have happened to us in the past that have helped us grow. We would probably choose a safer path, a less painful path, less suffering, something easier if it were up to us to determine how our growth occurs. Life is the navigator that brings us difficulties, that brings the disordering and the shattering to us. We don't really have control over it. And for a time, like the author of this poem, we are stuck looking at the pieces and the remnants of what has been shattered when this disorder begins. And all we can do is weep for a while and feel our own sadness and grief that what we thought was going to happen didn't happen and can't happen and won't happen. That what we wanted will not be ours. And so this depiction of disorder sounds bleak. And in the beginning, it may feel very bleak. We may feel hopeless. We may feel that there's no possible way we can go on. There's no way that we can put any of this back together. There's no way we can figure out a next step to take. And that's actually normal too. It's normal, and it's okay for us to sit for a while in our grief and to feel the pain of loss, because that very pain actually helps deepen us and helps us explore our own inner aspect so that we can discover our creativity that's lying in wait, ready for us to utilize for the future. And I have another poem to share with you that describes what I think is a way through the shattered glass of our lives, the shattering of the disorder and seeing pieces all around us. This poem is called The Way It Is by William Stafford. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. I love this poem because of this reference to the thread, and that's what I'm talking about. The thread that he's describing is what we can discover in the midst of our grief when we go deep within. We find our creativity, we may find our deeper purpose for life and meaning for life, and that becomes the thread that we can hold on to. And so for future times of disorder, that thread will continue to be there for us. We can hang on to it. It can help us get through each new time of disorder that we are facing. And so to put it in other terms, what might the thread be that you discover? Maybe in the midst of your grief or your shattering, you remember that you used to love to sing. And maybe you start to sing some songs that bring you peace and comfort, that actually make your soul light up and vibrate. Maybe you remember that you like to dance, and that becomes the thread that you will carry on through the future. Maybe your thread is laughter. Maybe your thread is gratitude, or being of service to other people. Maybe your thread is walking on the beach or in a forest and reconnecting with nature. So it is this search that we do after we've been shattered by the disorder of life that helps us find the thread. The thread is what will get us through this time of everything falling apart, but also through future times, as long as we can remember the thread and as long as we don't let go of it. So part of what we're looking for, perhaps as we are trying to figure out how to reorder our lives after the pandemic, is, are there any new threads that you've discovered during this year of making do and getting by during the pandemic? Have you started any new hobbies, taken up anything new? Is there anything that has been precious to you that you want to continue to carry with you as your thread? Some of the aspects of life that we have taken on for the past year might not be possible. You might have to return to a workplace instead of working from home. And you may have enjoyed parts of that, but you won't be able to reproduce that in your workplace. But what if there's something that you have loved about being home that you could take with you back to the office as your thread that carries you through, that reminds you always that you are resilient, you are creative, you have the power to change how you look at things and how you approach things. You can change your own mindset and your own way of viewing the world. You've been doing it for the past year, and that's how you will go forward in the future, is to continue to hold that thread. Remember that you have the power to make changes within yourself, even if you don't have control over everything that's external to yourself. And next, another poem by Ellen Bass titled, "The Thing Is." The thing is to love life, to love it even when you have no stomach for it, and everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper in your hands, your throat filled with the silt of it. When grief sits with you, its tropical heat thickening the air, heavy as water, more fit for gills than lungs. When grief weights you like your own flesh, only more of it, an obesity of grief, you think, how can a body withstand this? Then you hold life like a face between your palms, a plain face, no charming smile, no violet eyes, and you say, yes, I will take you. I will love you again. Now that poem really inspires me with this idea that what we may have learned and hopefully can learn that will help us move on to a new transformed state of order is to love life just as it is, no matter how plain it is, to love life during the times when it doesn't offer us much that seems beautiful or that inspires us, but to love life anyway. And this image of holding life like a face between the palms of your hands and saying yes to your life. Yes, I accept you. Yes, I take you as you are. You don't have to be more special or more beautiful or more successful or more powerful. I take you as you are. That just makes my heart leap, the idea that all we have to do in order to transform ourselves, in order to let life change us through this process of disorder and reorder, is to continue to love life just as it is, to love all the hard parts of life, all the things that hurt us and distress us and confuse us, to continue to feel love for our own lives. There's so much power in that. There is so much growth potential in our ability to love our lives, whatever they are. So as we're looking for the thread that we're going to hold on to keep us going throughout future times of disorder, let it be a thread that helps us love life. So a thread that brings us joy, that makes our heart sing, a thread that tells us that life is still good and still wonderful and still beautiful, even though it sucks and it hurts and it takes everything away from us that we thought we could count on. Life is still worth loving. This life that I have, that I'm living right now, is still worthwhile. So I think we're looking here at some of the keys for how we navigate this cycle of order, disorder, and reorder. And per the previous poem, finding a thread, whatever that thread is that you can carry with you. You can already look back on your life perhaps and see the presence of that thread, whatever it might be for you, and how it's been helpful to you in the past, and how you're going to be more aware of it now and carry it intentionally and willingly with you as you move forward into a new place of reordering, and then whatever disorder will follow after that. And then also to remember to simply love your life. Love it just as it is, without expecting life to be something different or demanding it, without feeling disappointed that life isn't different. To simply be okay with your life as it is right now, right here, today, in this moment. It's all okay. It's all good enough. It's all worthy of your love. And when you reach that place where you can, in every moment, hopefully, or most moments, truly love your life, that's when you will have the secret of negotiating every other stage of order, disorder, and reorder that comes to you in the future. You will be able to negotiate it. You will have found the secret to it. It will still be painful. All of the losses will still hurt you. They'll still be difficult. You will still feel shattered, and you will still need to weep and grieve for a time. But you'll remember the thread, and you'll remember that you love your life anyway, in spite of these difficulties. And then that actually the disorder, the impermanence of things, the changes that come, those are actually the things that make life precious and that make life beautiful. And so we can learn to cherish what is fleeting, what will not last, what will not continue in our lives. We can learn to celebrate the disorder, to celebrate the falling apart, to celebrate the changes. And that's how we will grow spiritually into our best possible selves. And I want to end with another poem. This is by Maria Eugenia Vaz Ferreira, and it's untitled. This poem reads, "To all that is brief and fragile, superficial, unstable, to all that lacks foundation, argument, or principles, to all that is light, fleeting, changing, finite, to smoke spirals, wand roses, to sea foam and mists of oblivion, to all that is light in weight for itinerance on this transient earth, somber, raving with transitory words and vaporous, bubbly wines, I toast in breakable glasses." And so this poem is such a beautiful invitation to us to actually learn to cherish everything about life that is going to fall apart, everything that will disappear, everything that will become disordered. And we can look around us and we already know, we already see all the parts of our lives that we have with us right here, right now, that won't last forever. We can learn all the more to cherish them in this moment. And that's one of the gifts of living in a system of disorder and reorder, is that we learn to cherish whatever we have right now and make the very best of it and toast it in our breakable glasses, knowing that the next toast around, we might not even have those glasses anymore, but we toast it in this moment with whatever we have because it's precious and beautiful. It is fleeting. It won't last, but that's actually what makes it so amazing. So this poem blows my mind with these images of a smoke spiral, a rose in a wand, the sea foam, the bubbles in a glass of champagne. All of these tiny moments of beauty in life that will disappear, that are fleeting and will go away, and disorder will set in again. But all we need to remember right now is to keep holding on to the thread that sustains us and gets us through life, to keep loving our lives exactly as they are right now, and then to toast the fact that whatever I have in this moment will not be with me for very long. And also toast the fact that disorder will arise and arrive in my life again. It's coming. I understand that. I anticipate it. I hold my thread and I keep loving my life just as it is. And so that's the perfect segue for my outro, which says to remember that we're here for love. That's actually what all of this life is about. Simply to learn how to love better, how to give and receive love. So face your fear. Be ready for whatever life sends your way next. Hold on to your thread and love each and every moment of your precious life. Bye-bye.